mouse. Sounds canny. But, oh well. I don't think I'm going to be doing this too long tonight. I'm not feeling good anyway. Tinny. So, well, anyway, my buddy was supposed to join me again tonight after his audio got cut off last week. We were supposed to continue the discussion because I really, really, really wanted his opinion on one or two things. Just because it's fun to have something to bounce off, someone to bounce off of. And generally, me and him have a pretty good chemistry with talking in the sense that we don't always agree, but sometimes we can land on the same, principles. So I really kind of wanted him to finish up the rent control thing with me, which he may have a little bit. I honestly didn't listen to last week's because the audio got cut off so bad. And so it basically looked like I was talking to myself for an hour, which I guess I might as well be. But the I really kind of wanted to get a good one. So, well, there's many more days, and this is still just for fun. But the one thing I actually didn't get to talk, and I don't want to keep regurgitating and beating a dead horse and staying on the same topic, but the one thing I actually did want to kind of bring up with the rent control thing too, just to finish it off, that I didn't, and there is truth in the sense that areas that where there's too much government control tend to not get the same kind of investment. So people will complain that there's not enough housing and so forth, but the simple understanding is if there's so much regulation that it's not worth it. Like, people want to sit there and say I don't want to say it like that, like stupid things, but people want to imagine that, if I'm an investor, I want to go into an area and I want to put in all my extra time and effort for a minimal profit because I should just be doing this out of the goodness of my own heart. And that's all, peachy keen, but in the grand scheme of things, just like I said the last couple times, really, I don't see anybody who's complaining about the cost of anything doing it. So again, it's a lot of, seems like to be a lot of people with their hands out, but not their hands up to sort of volunteer to work, to put in the effort to do it. So that's just one more thing that I think I forgot to mention is just that when you start looking at things like rent strikes and rent controls and even these tenant unions, you're going to lose out on investments. And you're going to lose out on the option of competition in that environment, which is actually going to create the environment you want of a cheaper rent and, more value for your money. So I think that a lot of people maybe go into, I don't really know if a lot of people go into these ideas with good intentions. I don't know if it's good intentions or if it's this idea of jumping on some kind of bandwagon like a social horse, so that way they can ride into the, stampede into the charge and pretend they're leading something and say they did something, and then just, I guess, hope they grow old and die before the repercussions actually happen. Or, like I say about working with the government, in this industry, it's, they're just going to constantly find a new bad guy to blame. So even if they did it, even if they said, let's do a rent strike, and, the rent strike got you one thing, but then 4 bad things happened, it's never going to be what you did that created those circumstances, the bad ones. It's always going to be, well, it would have worked if it wasn't for this, or if it wasn't for them. It's that same socialist communist outlook. It's like that perpetual real communism has never been tried. Well, it kind of has numerous times, and it's kind of failed. And people will say that in the grand scheme of things, capitalism is failing, but it's not. In reality, capitalism isn't failing. You're failing capitalism. The one thing actually I said last time, the first time, not the last time, but the first time, was this idea where I couldn't remember the phrase of Main Street versus blah, 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 but it was Wall Street versus Main Street. And it was which is really funny because I'm not turning this into a right or left discussion, Democrat, Republican. I don't view myself as either. I don't think any of us should. I think it's a stupid way to position yourself. They're not sports teams. These things have these ideas. They have real outcomes, and when you jump on the bandwagon of one particular party because it has one thing you like, and you ignore all the other things that are obviously bad, it's bad decision making. And you can't go into these things thinking like, well, we'll just look at that later. Like, well, we'll take care of that later. You can't. That's not how it works. Because once any particular group of any side gets enough control, you're never going to go back to it because they're not going to let you. So, but the grand scheme of things, it's the right way back when was defending this idea of Main Street versus Wall Street, and how a lot of the as I remember it anyway, a lot of the big companies were coming in and, shutting down these small companies, and the mom and pop hardware stores were going out of business because the Home Depots were opening up everywhere. Which again, whether it's government oversight, I'm not saying government oversight should step in and say, no, you can't open there. So that's the difference between, like, let's say communism and capitalism. Capitalism lets the Home Depot open there. But just like everything else, you, as a consumer, have the ability not to go there. But we choose to go there because there are certain aspects and conveniences that we like about it. Generally, I will go to a Home Depot when I need stuff to work on my properties because it's just there. I mean, in the grand scheme of things. But there are a lot of times where, like, I need something awkward, and ironically, that local hardware store has it. And I am one of those weird people that will go out of my way to go, like, to a small store or to go to the store instead of, like, ordering it on Amazon. And that's why I always use that expression, that same thing I constantly say. The adject is, if you hate capitalism and you hate billionaires, cancel your Prime. Well, I shouldn't have to cancel my Prime. That's not what this is talking. No, it is what we're talking about. You're feeding the beast. You're feeding the beast, and you're disliking the damage it's causing. So you have to not feed the beast. If you genuinely despise the way something is working, at least in capitalism, you can turn around and say, I'm not going to buy there. It's just, look at the Target. Look at Target and Bud Light, two very good examples, because it's kind of going to venture into the next topic, which is the trans stuff. But Target and Bud Light, even Disney, taking big whacks because consumers are turning around and saying, now it could just be timing too. I mean, it could be the fact that, granted, I will say I boycotted Bud Light. I've always boycotted Bud Light. I think the beer tastes like shit. So I've always boycotted the beer. And you know what? I will say this, leading into the trans topic too. Bud Light did that completely wrong. People did not dislike the... What you just said here? Huh? People did, sorry, I'm getting a text message from the other half, where she might actually call in later. But, yes, there's a woman that tolerates it. So, and if that's the case, imagine how she is, just as bad. So, but people didn't dislike the fact that Bud Light catered to, like, a trans activist or anything like that. They hated the fact that they did it to Dylan Mulvaney, or with Dylan Mulvaney. I will say this, nobody really would have, nobody thinks that Dylan Mulvaney is genuine. When you look at his history and you look at, who he is and what he is, he comes across as a bandwagon jumper. He wanted his 15 minutes of fame, and he was going to get it no matter how he was going to get it. And, he decided when nothing else was working, I'm going to pretend to be a girl. And oh my God, he decided that he was going to dress like a girl and act like a girl and pretend to everybody he was a girl. And he had these major agencies to back him these like acting agencies and agents and things like that who had these connections to get him in the doors to say, hey, this is the new mascot of this whole like social genre. But nobody likes him. And I'm gonna say him. And we'll get into that. Nobody likes him. And he's not genuine, he's not authentic, he's not personable, it genuinely doesn't make a good looking woman. I'm sorry to say that. Not that I want to look at it that way, but he just looks like a guy in drag. If Bud Light wanted to do this and take that leap, if they had used RuPaul, nobody would have given a shit. They would have probably looked at that and been like, that's fucking hysterical. RuPaul is a genuine, established character that's been around for ages. People like him. He's genuine. He's authentic. He plays the part very, very well. Actually makes a passable woman when he dresses up. We've all been fooled. We've all been fooled by at least one or two, quick images or shots of RuPaul. But he's funny. He's likable. He's a character. That's where they went and fucked up. So that bitch who was running that whole campaign, that was your fault. Why you picked Dylan Mulvaney over somebody like RuPaul to do... You wanted to celebrate this dipshit's first year of womanhood when RuPaul has been dressing like a woman since the fucking 90s that I can remember. It could have been beforehand. I mean, I don't think I would have really noticed because I would have been too young. But, so, anyway, but to go back and double back, capitalism hasn't failed. Consumerism has failed. Take that to the bank. Suck it up. It's your fucking fault. That's what the problem is. Your fucking fault, and nobody wants to fucking admit it. Nobody wants to say, yes, I am not only part of the problem, I caused the problem, I watched it happen, and now it's grown too big for me to think I can correct it. But you can correct it. And these aspects of where people have done... Look at the Goya boycott that happened. When fucking... oh, Christ, I can't remember his name now. But when the CEO of Goya went and spoke highly of Trump at the White House when Trump invited him there. And he spoke highly of him, maybe next week I'll talk about this whole Trump thing. But, of course, fucking asshole OC had to turn around. And yes, I despise that woman. Like, she's just so goddamn dumb. Just so dumb. She is the epitome of what should not ever be in Congress. She's just, people want to think that she's this grassroots person. She's not. She came from a pretty affluent angle, went to a pretty prestigious school, etc., etc. So if you're coming from my conspiracy-driven mind, she was placed there. She was placed. So, but anyway, she tried to say, well, guess what? We're going to boycott Goya. And as my buddy who was on last week said, who is Puerto Rican, the one thing you don't do is try and tell Puerto Rican people not to boycott Goya. Because that's just not going to happen. They're going to support Goya. And in the grand scheme of things, the sales shot through the roof because they couldn't keep it on the shelves. It was hysterical. It was amazing. People were just knocking cans into their carriages and buying up hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of Goya products and then amazingly donating them to pantries and things like that. So, this is where consumerism works. And I'd hate to say it, but in this situation, the right has a much bigger advantage in this situation than the left. And I've always said this, the right is, I would have to say, is technically the bigger consumer base. And not in the sense that there are maybe even more people, but they're the people that actually go and buy things. I think conservative people genuinely go, they're bigger consumers. I think that, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I think more liberal people and stuff like that, left-wingers, they do the thrift shop shopping and they get all their, phones from AT&T on contract and stuff like that. And I think they shop in a way where they think they're getting a better deal, but they're genuinely not. Whereas I think consumers, right-leaning consumers are a little more regimented and budgeted better. And I think that's also leans into some of the accounting aspects between the two different groups, where it always seems like, you know, people will say like, you know, they'll turn it into something that it's not. But you know, in general, you know, you go into these nicer areas, and more often than not, they're either conservative or they're like shades of blue closet conservative. You know, NIMBYs, if you want to call them. I actually wrote an article. No, I didn't write the article. Sorry, I just posted the link on my site where, you know, yeah, I'm NIMBY. I'm NIMBY as fuck. I don't give a shit. So, but I think that people really need to look at those aspects of themselves and decide that if you think something isn't working, the way you want to change it is also not working. And I think the way to change it is always with your wallets. I mean, I was just reading an article this morning about, you know, EV purchasing and how so many companies are just losing money like crazy on EVs. You know, people don't, do I care? I think it's hysterical. Me and the wife actually saw recently two different EVs broken down on the side of the road. One actually pulled off in front of me. It was in front of me on my way to work one morning, and it just pulled off to the right, to the curb. And the like literally a week later, she saw another one. And do I think that they're bad? No, I don't give a shit. What do I give a fuck? You know, it's just like going into the next topic, which I keep saying I'm going to go into, and then I never do. I keep rambling. But it's just like I'm going into the next topic. Listen, if you fucking want one, knock yourself out. Buy 7. I don't give a shit. But don't tell me I have to buy one. You know, if you made me one that was like, I always say this, if you built one that was, you know, $3,000 and it was only good for doing around town and short highway drives to run errands, I'd fucking buy it. Like if it can go 100 miles, and I'd buy it. I don't give a shit. You know, on maintenance, I guess they say the maintenance is better. In the grand scheme of things, I guess you'd call it a fuel charge, is turning out to almost be the same. And just like any other aspect of consumerism and capitalism, if you have that competition, which is what I would say internal combustion versus EV, if you have all that on the market, that's competition, and those are going to compete against each other, and that'll drive the prices down and drive the prices of, you know, electricity and gasoline down. So that benefits everybody. So anybody who decides, no, get these EVs off the road or get these internal combustion engines off the road, you're kind of dumb. I mean, yeah, you're very dumb. Because let's just say all internal combustion engines are gone. Do you think electricity is going to get cheaper? No. It's not going to get cheaper. It's going to be the only fucking game in town. You're going to be paying out the ass for it. You know? So then what is everybody going to do? Oh, we're all going to get solar panels. Well, good luck with that. So anyway, moving on to the next topic. Again, don't tell me to buy an EV. You do what you want. I'm not telling you what to do and what not to do. And this goes into the trans topic, where I was discussing on Twitter probably, I don't know, a week or so ago. I wasn't even discussing it. Somehow I got looped into it. I made one comment, and then, like everything on Twitter, you end up going on, like, you know, after 2 days, and you see you have fucking 42 notifications, and you just, it's like, I don't want to be involved in this. But you realize 40 of them aren't even direct responses. It's, you know, hey, this is an alert to a tweet you were mentioned in. I don't care. What do I need to give a shit about this? And it was all about whether trans women are real women. And no, they are not. I don't understand how anybody could sit there and say that, yes, they are. They're not. Again, if you want to say it, hey, knock yourself out. Say it till you're fucking blue in the face. You're not changing my mind. And I'm never going to accept it. And I'm biologically never going to be able to look at it that way. I don't see how anybody could be like, yes, this Dylan Mulvaney, who is a man and has a penis, is a woman. Literally like the definition of what is not a woman. And one of the big reasons I wanted to talk about this with my buddy was because me and him used to say this thing I'm talking years ago, we saw this coming. like years. And I don't know if it was in the audio, but I had told him like there was something I wanted to talk to you about, and I wanted to like that we had called, and he's like, I know exactly what you're talking about, and we didn't get to it, but I talked to him today. I guess he was going to call in, but then he got sick. But he did. We talked to him, and he knew exactly what we were talking about. And it's this idea now that if you don't want to date a trans person, you're a transphobe. Okay, sure. I mean, if that's what it is, then that's what I am. Whatever. Hey, knock yourself out. I don't give a shit. Sticks and stones will break my bones. Names will never hurt me, right? You know, that is the least concern thing that I'm worried about in life. But you know, it's this push now where they almost want to try and force the idea. I don't know if it's a depopulation thing or I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's, you know, to make it socially more acceptable. So, like, you know, incel dudes can date trans women and not feel like it's gay. I don't. Hey, listen, if you're a dude and you're dating a trans chick and it's passable, nobody's going to care. Like, they're just going to be like, oh, there's a dude with his girl, you know? But if you're walking around with some chick with fucking 5 o'clock shadow who's 6'3" and has calves like a linebacker, people are going to fucking look, you know? And they're going to say, like, that's a dude. So, but you're not going to convince them otherwise. But here's the thing. You don't have to. Like, you can do what you want to do as long as it's not bothering or hurting anybody. But the idea that you want to force other people to accept this idea and ideology is just strange and borderline fascist. I don't comprehend where this alter bullying came about, where it's like, no, you have to accept, you have to believe what I believe. To me, I always say this, the modern left is legitimately the religious right of the 80s, like the 80s. They're the ones that used to go and blow up abortion clinics and shit like that. You are now what supposedly you hated. And the thing is that really makes you think, is that a coordinated thing? Because I will always say is, you know, if you were to look at, you know, Twitter and you were to follow like the algorithms, then it's feeding you what supposedly, you know, you look for, but it's not. Like a lot of the times, I'm getting so much weird shit that, like, I've never looked for this. Like, I'm not interested in this. And I get it. There's that saying where the AI is set up to make you angry. Because if you're angry, you're going to you're going to want to use the outlet. You're going to want to get involved in the argument. You're going to want to be, like, right and, you know, prove your point and steadfast and make that person believe what you want to believe. But me and my buddy will always say we've gotten into this idea where that's somehow acceptable, and no one can just look at each other anymore and go, okay, well, let's just agree to disagree. You know, there's actually one guy on here. You know, I want to get him to call in one day. I really do. I was going to show him my notifications, but I'm not going to do that to him. And me and him are on completely different sides, and we have actually really good discussion a lot. And then in the end, there's a lot of times where we'll, you know, disagree and just be like, hey, it is what it is. You believe what you believe. I believe what I believe. But, you know, you walk away hopefully learning a new detail about something you didn't think you knew. So, and I would actually like to get his opinion on this. You know, an honest to goodness opinion on this. Like, how would you feel? Are trans women women? Should they be in men's, you know, should trans men be able to trans women? Yeah, should trans women be able to? I still don't even get that. You want me to accept something, and I don't still understand the difference here. Whether trans woman, I guess, is a guy trying to be a chick, you know, but you still have. Well, here's the thing: you still have all the same body parts of a guy. I actually said this to somebody. Like, okay, you're saying that a trans woman is a real woman, but you're not. It's got all man's parts. It's got a man's chest. It's got a man's weenie. It's got a man's butt. Like, that's how it works. So even if you were to get implants in your chest, it's still a guy's chest. You just put implants behind them. It's still a dude's chest. And even if you were to lop off the penis and so-called turn it into a vagina, it's not, because you're still taking, like, they take skin from other parts of your body, and then to make the vaginal cavity, they actually take a piece of your colon. So it's almost like now it's a dude's ass on both sides. Like, it's just, there's nothing you're doing that's making it an actual woman. And I mean, I don't want to, I guess, use the word it, but I guess you're making him or her. It's just not going to happen. And the idea that you want to, you know, make other people forced to accept it is strange, because especially in the grand scheme of things, because most people, again, don't legitimately care. Like, they don't. But you want to sit there and say, sorry, this is just water. What are your thoughts on Planned Parent app? I don't know what that means. So that's in the chat. So I just lost my fucking train of thought. God damn it. But you need to change the subject. I'm out. Okay. But there was one thing I genuinely, really, really, really wanted to ask my buddy. And you know what? Maybe I'll just send him this, and then if he wants to come on next time, during the follow-up to this, if anybody taps in, is if a guy is trying to become a woman, and then I know this will probably get the other half. So maybe she'll call in for this one, because that would be a good one. And I kind of feel like I know what her opinion would be. If not, I can hear her voice ringing in my head already what she would be saying. If a trans woman goes out to a bar with the intent of trying to fool a guy and does, and he finds out afterwards, would that be sexual assault? And I stand on the grounds firmly that yes, that would be sexual assault, and then that person should be charged accordingly. Now, I think you know what, I really think my buddy would turn around and say that he would probably agree with me on that. Now, 9 times out of 10, I'd probably say the guy's also going to beat the shit out of the person. Would that be called for? I would probably say, yeah. You know, in that instance of temporary insanity, you know, you put yourself in that position to where that's an option of what's going to happen to you. So, I really, really, really wanted to ask him that. And if anybody else listens and hears that, I'd really, really like to get what their point of view is. I've put the question out from time to time and get very few answers on it. I don't know if it gets, buried or just not seen, because, you know, I'm not super duper out there on social media and stuff like that. It's not something I'm super interested in. Even this, I mean, I just do it for the fuck of it. It's fun. It gives me an outlet when I'm not working on, music and stuff like that. And I feel like this could be an option where I actually could, draw up some answers. So, is it assault? If I had more people in right now, if I'd like to get thoughts from the one person in the chat right now. Oh God. Do you want me to talk about that? Oh my goodness, excuse me. I am not feeling well today. So, I mean, people now too, there was one show, like a little cast I did a while ago where I kind of went on this topic too, and there was an article I read where now people are starting to use like these examples of, sex isn't binary, gender isn't binary. Another thing, I don't give a shit, that you're trying to claim there's a difference, because to me there's not. And I think there's an innate nature in all of us where we know when something is, there's an apprehension we have. You know, I will say this, like there used to be a full-on post-op trans person at my job, and it was male to female, so that's kind of scary. Now, I always knew this person as a female, so I just always said her, didn't care. Even after I found out, I was just like, okay, you know, whatever, this person, you know, she this and she that. But innately, and what's funny is I had a female coworker who said the same thing to me when I had said this to her. I said, yes, she's very nice, doesn't really like, you know, bother me per se, hey, you do what you want to do. But for some reason, whenever she came around me, not my coworker, the other one, my stomach physically turned, and it's almost, I almost compared it to this. It wasn't like a hate or a despise or anything like that. That's not what I'm getting at. But there was an innate physical aversion to it. And I compared it to the idea of when you're a guy and you see another guy get kicked in the balls and you're like, oh, but now magnify that by like 1,000 because there are no balls. And it was like that. It was like, oh, you know, like, oh God, like you cut it off, man. And so like there's a physical aversion to that. And I always say that too when it goes on to like the idea of people who are like, you know, you're intolerant if you're not accepting of the gay lifestyle. I mean, what do you give a shit if they're not or they are? It's if you could be born that way, you could be born with a physical aversion to that too. You know, no one says either one has to be a dick to each other, but you know, both sides have to understand that. So, you know, same thing in this universe. You know, you want to turn around and say that you need me to think a certain way, and I'm not going to. You know, it's like you're at work. Well, you have to call this person a she because otherwise it makes them feel bad and blah, blah. Okay, but you're forcing me to say and act in a way that I wouldn't normally do, and you're not concerned that that makes me feel bad. So at what point do the ideas of who's disenfranchised here start to shift? You know, if you can say that, like, well, you have to do this because they're a marginalized group, but are they at that point? If they have the ability to force somebody else to say and think and act out in a way that is not according to how they genuinely feel, would you still say that that group is marginalized? Or are you now the marginalized person? So, I mean, it's just food for thought. You know what? This only went on for 34 minutes. I might actually just stop it here because, you know, the first like 2 minutes was me bumbling and fumbling around. But I want to really try and keep these short anyway, especially if I don't have another person for that night. I really wish I had Doomer. I should have had him call it. This would have been a really tough. Maybe I'll let him know. I'll send him the link. Let him watch it. He's someone that I wouldn't mind, you know, getting his thoughts on this. That would be interesting. You know, I should have him start his own, and then we'll just do back and forth casts. You know, but so I would like to wish everybody a good night. I am not feeling well. I can feel myself like sweating through my shirt, and wearing this mask is not helping. And people, actually, that's another thing I should mention. In one of the old casts that I used to do with Doomer, somebody in the Rumble asked why I was wearing the mask and what was I afraid of. And I've done multiple things where my face has been shown. And then I forgot why. I think it turned into just a gimmick where me and him were doing it, and I was going to wear like a different mask every week because I just thought it was like funny. I think at first it was during COVID, so I was making fun of people who like wore the actual masks. But then I realized it kind of annoyed people, so now I just do it because of that. You know, it just irritates people, so why would I not do it? So that's the explanation for that. But yeah, it's 9 o'clock. I started at 8:30. I think I'm good. see going on too much further than this. And everybody, again, have a good night.